Before I get into what happened, I need to warn you. This is the kind of story that changes the way you look at your own home, your own routines, even your own sense of safety as a parent. I thought I understood fear. I thought I understood panic. But nothing in my life prepared me for the moment I realized my 5-year-old son was missing. So here's how it happened and why I'm still trying to recover from it. Story 1. My husband's hobby destroyed our marriage and our future. I've been married for 5 years, and for most of that time, I thought my husband and I were just a normal couple trying to build a life together. We have a 3-year-old daughter, a mortgage, jobs, responsibilities, all the usual stuff. But somewhere along the way, my husband picked up a hobby that has slowly eaten our marriage from the inside out. It started last year when he said he wanted something fun to do on the side, something that could also be a little business. He got into buying and selling NFL and NBA cards. I didn't think much of it at first. Plenty of adults have hobbies. Plenty of people buy cards. But most people don't secretly spend thousands of dollars on credit cards in 2 months while selling exactly nothing. I only found out after he had already racked up $8,000 of debt behind my back. And this wasn't a one-time mistake. It was part of a pattern because before cards, he was gambling online. Roulette. Hours at a time. Losing money we didn't have. This hobby was just a shinier, more socially acceptable addiction. And the worst part? I'm the breadwinner. I bring in about $7,200 a month after taxes. He brings in $4,000, but he spends like he thinks we're millionaires. A perfect example, he decided to buy a $90,000 car with a $1,745 monthly payment. Because, in his words, it made him happy. Meanwhile, I was the one saying, "We can't afford this. This is not smart. You have spending issues. You have anger issues. Please think this through." He didn't think anything through. By the end of last year, I had reached my breaking point. I filed for divorce. And he panicked. He promised me he'd quit the hobby. He'd sell everything. He'd go to therapy. He'd change. He said all the right things, and I wanted to believe him. I really did. We have a child together. We had a life together. So I canceled the divorce, and we went to marriage counseling. For a while, things seemed okay. But slowly, he started skipping sessions. Then he said they weren't necessary anymore. At the same time, I was watching the credit cards climb again. Watching the boxes of cards show up at the door. Watching him disappear into TikTok streams and whatnot auctions, because this time, it's a business. We're now sitting on $72,000 in debt consolidation from cards from past gambling, from all the financial fires I've had to put out behind him. And just when I thought things might stabilize, he dove right back into his hobby like nothing ever happened. He's already spent another $800 on cards. Then he told me his newest business idea. He wanted to buy $11,000 worth of unopened card packs so he could flip them. When I told him I wasn't comfortable with that, he acted like I was the villain in his personal movie. He said I never let him have a hobby. And then he actually said, "You should be glad it's not golf. I'd never be home." As if spending money we don't have on cardboard is somehow the more responsible option. We even tried splitting finances, but that just turned into me covering everything anyway, because he could never pay his half of the mortgage on time, or our daughter's school fees, or honestly anything. I finally had to face the truth. The only way this marriage survives is if I stand back and let him drag us into financial ruin. And I can't do that. Not for him, not for me, and absolutely not for our daughter. So I met with a lawyer. I found a house for me and my child, and this weekend I'm moving out. I'm filing the papers, and for the first time in a long time I feel relief. I feel like I can breathe again. I'm sad, of course. No one gets married thinking it'll end like this. But I'm proud of myself. I'm proud that I finally chose stability over chaos, reality over empty promises, and safety over sinking with a ship someone else keeps drilling holes in. I'm not cutting him out of our daughter's life. We'll be amicable. That's what's best for her. But I'm done sacrificing my future because he refuses to take responsibility for his present. Maybe one day he'll get help. Maybe he won't. But that's not my battle to fight anymore. My job now is to protect my daughter, rebuild my life, and let this be the chapter that finally closes before the whole book burned down with it. Story 2. My own sister reported us to CPS. Over a Christmas argument, I always thought my sister and I were close. The kind of close where you spend holidays together, share inside jokes from childhood, and never once question whether the other person has your back. Every Christmas Eve, she and her fiancé would sleep over and help my husband and me set up the presents for the kids. We called ourselves Santa's helpers. It was silly, but it was our tradition. This year, she was there again, and everything felt normal until it suddenly wasn't. My 13-year-old son is, well, he's a teenager. He argues, he pretends not to know how to do things he's done 100 times, he slams doors, the usual. His teachers see it too, so we've been trying to handle things with a balance of tough love and long conversations. Whenever he blows up, my husband gives him a few minutes to cool down, then goes upstairs to actually talk through what happened. It's not perfect, but it works for us. On Christmas Eve, my son decided to tell his 3-year-old sister that Santa wasn't real. We corrected him immediately, he pushed back the argument, escalated, and eventually he stormed upstairs. 10 minutes later, my husband followed for one of their calm, serious talks. My sister and her fiancé were in the room for all of this. They didn't seem bothered. They didn't say a word. Everything felt totally normal afterward. My son apologized and went to bed, and the evening went on like any other Christmas Eve we've ever had. Then school started again, after the break, and everything I thought I knew about my family just cracked. A child protective services worker showed up at my son's school and pulled him out of class. They asked him about how we treat him at home. He told them he loved us, that sometimes he gets grounded, sometimes we take away electronics, and sometimes he argues because he's 13, but he knows we discipline him because we want him to grow. He told them everything was fine. I didn't find out any of this until later because at the same time I was dealing with something terrifying of my own. I have a seizure disorder. I haven't had a seizure in 10 years, but in December I had 3 back-to-back. So there I was, sitting in my neurologist's office preparing for an EEG sleep study when I saw a missed call. It was the CPS worker. Her voicemail said she was coming to our house the next day to interview us and our toddler. I forwarded the message to my husband and begged him to call her back because I literally couldn't handle it. Between the seizures, the stress, and the fear of CPS, my brain just shut down. When the worker came the next day, we finally learned what had been reported. She told us that someone claimed my husband was an alcoholic with anger issues, and that we were starving our children. All 3 of them. Let me just say this. My husband is not an alcoholic. Yes, we were drinking eggnog and wine on Christmas Eve because our whole family was there. It was a holiday. No one was drunk except my sister, who drank an entire 18-pack of beer by herself. And as for anger issues, the only anger in that house came from a teenager being told not to ruin Santa for his sister. Our discipline was a talk between father and son in a quiet upstairs bedroom. Then the CPS worker checked the alleged lack of food. She walked into our kitchen, opened the pantry, the fridge, the freezer, and literally laughed. She said, There's enough food here to feed everyone in this house for 3 months. We cook, we host family, we feed our kids well. The accusation wasn't just wrong, it was absurd. By the time she left, she told us she was grateful to be handling a case where the kids were clearly loved and healthy. She said she'd be closing the case the same day. That should have been the end of it. But when I told my parents and brother what happened, we all came to the same conclusion. My sister had done this. She hadn't said the exact words, but her behavior made it obvious. She was weirdly invested in how the interview went. She kept calling me non-stop. She wanted updates every 5 minutes. And when I finally said that everything was fine, she suddenly went silent and refused to speak to me for weeks. I didn't want to believe it. I've been trying to figure out how to confront her without exploding, because this is the kind of betrayal that feels like being stabbed from behind by someone you trusted with your whole life. Eventually, she reached out and told me how much she loved me. I replied that I needed her to be honest with me, and she called me immediately. Before I even asked the question, she said, "I think you already know the answer." Then she admitted it. Just like that. Yes, she was the one who reported us. I asked her if she understood what could have happened to my kids, to my husband, to me. Did she understand the danger she put us in? CPS could have taken my children away based on lies. She didn't care. She immediately went into a rant. She screamed that my husband and I don't deserve to be parents. She said I obviously don't care about my kids. She twisted every word I tried to say and screamed over me so loudly I couldn't get a single sentence out. I think she was drunk again. Her words were slurred, mean, and completely unhinged. The only thing she heard from me was that we'd be taking a long break from her. She said, "I'm sure you will, and I don't care," and went right back to yelling. So I hung up. I blocked her. And then I called my dad because she sounded unstable enough that someone needed to check on her. And that was it. That was the moment I realized I lost my sister. Not to a fight, not to a misunderstanding, but to whatever mess she's created inside her own mind, anger, jealousy, alcohol, resentment. I don't know. I just know she crossed a line you can't ever uncross. I'm heartbroken. My dad is heartbroken. Our entire family is cracked down the middle because of what she did. And I'm left here wondering how long she'd been carrying this darkness around without anyone noticing. All I wanted was for it not to be true. But it was. And now my priority is protecting my kids and keeping peace in my home. I don't know what she'll do next. I'm worried she'll retaliate. But I can't let her near my family again. Some betrayals you can forgive. This wasn't one of them. Story 3. My 5-year-old went missing, and we thought he was dead. I don't think anything can prepare you for the moment you realize your child is missing. 1 second life feels normal. I was cooking dinner with my husband while our 5-year-old played somewhere in the house, and the next second, your entire world flips upside down. It started so small. We told our son he needed to come eat dinner, and he pouted and ran off because he didn't want what we made. Honestly, it was typical 5-year-old behavior. I didn't think anything of it. My husband didn't either. But a few minutes later, he looked around and said, "Have you seen him?" And that's when everything began to unravel. We checked his room, the playroom, the backyard, every bathroom, every corner of the house. Nothing. At first it was irritation, then confusion, and then this cold wave of panic that hits you so fast it feels like your stomach drops out. We searched the house again, every closet, under every bed, behind every curtain. Still nothing. That's when I called 911. We have a pool in our backyard, and during the winter we hadn't kept up with it. The water was murky, dark enough that you couldn't see the bottom. as soon as I told the dispatcher that I felt my knees go weak. I couldn't stop imagining the worst possible outcome. The next 45 minutes were absolute hell. Police cars surrounded our house, fire trucks, 2 ambulances, a helicopter circled overhead. My husband and I took turns holding our 6-month-old while we ran from room to room, yard to yard, calling our son's name until our voices cracked. Every minute that passed felt like an hour. When I overheard one of the officers say they were bringing a body heat scanner to check the pool, I collapsed in our front yard. I've never screamed like that in my life, not from pain, not from fear, not from anything. It sounded like something dying, and I guess in a way it was. A part of me was already mourning. They wouldn't let me near the backyard while they scanned the water. So I went through the garage instead, searching again, even though I knew I wouldn't find anything. I checked inside the car, underneath it, behind every container. Then I moved back through the living room, and that's when I heard one of the officers say, "We found him." For a second, I didn't know whether to run or freeze. Someone grabbed me and said they'd found body heat inside the house, so I followed them upstairs, barely breathing. My son. My sweet, stubborn, impossible little boy. He was wedged between our mattress and the headboard, completely covered in pillows, sound asleep. He had tucked himself so perfectly out of sight that even with 2 full searches, we never saw him. Everyone had assumed the worst, because no one imagined he'd be hidden in the safest place of all our own bed. The instant I saw him breathing, everything in me just collapsed. Relief, exhaustion, anger, love, all spilling out at once. I didn't even know how to feel. I still don't. My brain is fried. My body feels like it ran a marathon I wasn't prepared for. I can't even describe how many emotions you can feel at the same time until your system just breaks. But he's alive. He's safe. And that's the only thing keeping me from falling apart right now. People talk about the worst day of their life, and I always thought it was something dramatic or metaphorical. But today, I lived mine. And all I can do now is cry, hold my kids closer, and hope that I never have to feel terror like that again. I still don't know how to process everything. My son is fine, he's healthy, and he has no idea how close we all came to losing him. And maybe that's a blessing, but I'm different now. I check every room twice. I keep the doors locked. I don't take silence for granted anymore. I know parents say it all the time, but I truly mean it. Now hold your kids close. You never realize how fragile everything is until the moment you think it's gone. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope none of you ever have to live through a day like this.